Good morning, dear students. Today we have taken a discussion which is extremely relevant clinically as well as from the pharmacological point of view. It has its own significance. The disease is having a lot of social stigma in the community, and it is known as leprosy. But whenever we are writing a prescription, most of the times we are avoiding using this term leprosy. Rather, we are using a different name of the disease, and that is called Hansen's disease. In other tropical and subtropical countries like Southeast Asia, Africa, this disease is very common. Though the leprosy bacilli was discovered by Hansen in 1873, it was almost 12 years before the discovery of tubercle bacilli. The progress in the chemotherapy of leprosy has been much slower than in that of tuberculosis. Why it so happened? This is because until recently it was not possible to culture the leprosy bacillus. Further, unlike tubercular bacilli, human leprosy cannot be transmitted to animals so easily. Human leprosy bacillus from nasal washings, skin biopsies has now been cultivated successfully in the food pads of armadillo and even in mice. And the disease has been successfully transmitted to some species of armadillo. These infected armadillo tissues contain a large number of leprosy bacilli and therefore providing a good experimental model of human leprosy. The goal of leprosy elimination at the national level was set at the National Health Policy 2002. It has been achieved in December 2005. So you can see the declining leprosy prevalence in India. More the green zone, you will understand that the things are becoming clear from different zones. Elimination almost achieved in 32 out of 35 states and union territories. This bacilli is basically a gram-positive obligate intracellular bacillus due to its large pool of non-functional genes. It is differentiated by acid first staining at 5% sulfuric acid with modified 5 stain on Jean-Nielsen stain, occurs characteristically in clumps or bundles, and its affinity for Schwann cell and cells of reticuloendothelium system gives him a special importance. These bacilli are very slow growing and they grows best in cooler tissues like skin, peripheral nerves, anterior chamber of eye, respiratory tract, usually the upper one, and testes. So these in brief about the microbiological nature of this bacilli. This bacilli has a long incubation period. It ranges from 2 to 40 years or even more, and it averages around 3 to 5 years. Its generation time is written here as 12 days, but in some book it is written as 14 days. And hence the duplication time of this bacilli is more in comparison to the other bacillus. Its infectivity is such that though it's highly infectious disease, but its pathogenicity is low. And beside the type called lepromatous leprosy, rest of the other leprosy are not that infectious. So almost 90 to 92% leprosy are not that infectious in nature. You can touch them by hand and they should not be quarantined or undergoing isolation. Among household contacts of lepromatous cases, about 5 to 12% is expected to show sign of leprosy within 5 years. So one must be very careful related to lepromatous leprosy. In lepromatous leprosy, the cell-mediated immunity is low because we have seen that it is showing negative lepromin test. The lesions around in lepra bacilli and the disease progresses rapidly. The nerves are affected late in the disease. The disease usually affects mainly the face, nose, ear, eyes, lymph glands. And the typical lesion of lepromatous leprosy is a macule and a hypopigmented circular erythematous patch not associated with itching or hypoalgesia. That means the function of the nerve fibers are lost. Macules are usually small, smooth, and symmetrically distributed. And kind of faces which is being manifested by these patients are called leonine faces. And eyelashes usually fall off. Later, ulceration may occur and marked tissue destructions involving eye, nose, and larynx are quite manifested in this type. In spite of marked destruction, leprosy per se is rarely the cause of death. Histologically, the lesion of lepromatous leprosy is essentially a granuloma consisting of many macrophages called lepra cells containing numerous bacilli. So when we are looking at the true picture of Mycobacterium leprosy, we are seeing there is no disease at a certain level. Then it comes the indeterminate leprosy, where it is not known in which category it's belonging. Then it's a kind of zone where it's belonging from tubercular leprosy to lepromatous. So it's swinging from one pole to the other pole. And you can see the cell-mediated immunity was intact in case of tubercular leprosy, whereas it is almost lost in case of lepromatous leprosy. In tubercular leprosy, the cell-mediated immunity is intact. It's showing strongly positive lepromin test. The organisms are few. Nerves are predominantly affected first, and progress of the disease is slow. The typical tubercular lesion is a large, flat, atrophic, hairless, hypopigmented lesion. Usually it has a margin. Sometimes a beginner may find it difficult to differentiate it from tinea lesions, but a proper history taking its sensation like temperature and pain will definitely help a clinician to differentiate between the two lesions. The peripheral nerves are thickened, though 70% of leprosy lesions has diminished sensation. 30% of the lesions are non-anesthetic in patients with multibacillary disease. The prognosis is better than in case of lepromatous, and gross mutilation occurs only secondary to nerve destruction and anesthesia. Histologically, the lesion consists of focal masses of epithelioid cells and giant cells with lymphocyte infiltration. Since this picture resembles to that seen in tuberculosis, it is also called tubercular leprosy. In between, there are borderline tubercular, borderline, and borderline lepromatous leprosy. So, borderline lepromatous leprosy is almost like lepromatous leprosy and having plenty of bacilli in the lesions, and they are basically coming under multibacillary leprosy, just from the clinical perspective. Whereas tubercular leprosy and intermediate leprosy usually showing fewer bacilli, and most of the times they are showing paucibacillary leprosy, though the clinical diagnosis is depending on something else. The diagnosis of leprosy is essentially a clinical and clinical acumen of a clinician, and it is supported by bacteriological evidence from smears from the lesions, nodules, earlobes, or from scrapings of the nasal mucosa. All smear positives are multibacillary type. All patients with active leprosy should be treated with chemotherapy. It is, however, unjustifiable and even dangerous to treat this disease on mere suspicion. So, this is not only expose the patient to prolonged therapy, but the drugs are toxic, so it will lead to severe psychological trauma as well as a chance of having adverse drug reactions. In case of doubtful diagnosis, it's better to wait for definite diagnosis because little harm can be done by waiting. The important aims of therapy are as follows: to achieve clinical cure, to achieve bacteriological cure, to treat physical deformities resulting from nerve and tissue damage. The psychological aspect of the patient and his environment also need attention. So this is the classification of leprosy, which I have mentioned already. Tuberculoid, borderline tuberculoid, borderline lepromatous, and lepromatous. The last two are basically showing lesser amount of cell-mediated immunity. So when we are trying to differentiate between these bacteriologically on the number of nerve lesions, the lymphocytes, acid-fast bacilli, Langerhans giant cells, then we are seeing this kind of pictures. In tuberculate and the borderline tuberculoid leprosy, one or few sharply defined annular symmetric nodules, macules or plaque with a tendency towards center clearing elevated borders. Whereas in case of borderline lepromatous, it is intermediate between borderline tuberculoid and lepromatous leprosy. And usually it's a ill-defined plaque and occasionally sharp margin. Whereas lepromatous showing symmetric, poorly marginated, multiple infiltrated nodules and plaques or diffuse infiltration. Nerves are very commonly involved. One nerve, maybe more than two nerves. So skin lesions is usually aesthetic early, and nerve near lesions sometimes enlarged. Nerve abscesses not common in borderline tuberculoid. Hypaesthetic or anesthetic skin lesions, nerve trunk pulses at times symmetric, whereas in case of lepromatous, hypaesthesia is basically a late sign. Nerve pallus is variable, whereas the number of bacilli is seen more with lepromatous leprosy in comparison to the tuberculoid one. Macrophage differentiation can be done with this. Lepromatous leprosy showing foamy changes as a rule, whereas the tuberculoid is showing epithelioid cell, but the epithelioid in borderline is also manifested with some foamy changes. The chance of getting giant cell, Langerhans giant cell, is more with tuberculoid variety. And lepromin skin test is showing positive with tuberculoid, but negative in rest of the two cases. So this is the first picture, which is showing tuberculoid leprosy, where, as I said, that sharp margin is more looking like tinea, almost centrally cleared lesions, but it can be differentiated from tinea corporis, though the margin is there, just by using a pin to test the pain sensation, or by using spirit to see cold sensitivity of the area. So pain and temperature are the common things by which clinically we can differentiate, or rather we can almost conclude one case as a case of single patch leprosy or tuberculoid leprosy. This one is showing satellite lesions, and here it is basically borderline. Patches are very well marked, nerves are probably involved. Here it's a case of lepromatous leprosy, and mostly the nerve fibers are not in working condition, so patient lost all the sensations, and the type of lesions are being manifested in this picture. So in our clinics, we used to form a criteria for grouping these kind of patients on basis of clinical diagnosis. So if the lesions are between 1 to 5 and no nerve or only one nerve involvement, then it is categorized as paucibacillary. Only single patch, then it is called single patch leprosy and nothing else. And if the number of lesions is more than 5, that means 6 and above, then it is multibacillary, even without any nerve involvement. If there will be no nerve involvement but more than one nerve is involved, rather nerve trunk, then it is called multibacillary. So to become multibacillary, it is either more than 6 lesions or more than one nerve trunk or both. So that will differentiate between the multibacillary leprosy and paucibacillary leprosy, because the diagnosis will decide whether we will treat our patients with 2 drugs or 3 drugs. Basically, in the case of single lesions, we are in the initial days we were thinking about giving patients the ROM therapy, that is a combination of rifampicin, ofloxacin and minocycline, and as a single dose. But once we started believing that you may miss some kind of lesions in case of single patch, and then it will actually be treated like a paucibacillary leprosy, the clinicians stopped taking any chances. They have started treating this patient even with a single patch, just like paucibacillary therapy. And this therapy usually goes on for 6 months. So what are the common drugs which are used in the treatment of leprosy? Dapsone, which should be given, the primary drug should be given in the almost on the older days. Then comes the clofazimine, which is only used in multibacillary leprosy. It has anti-inflammatory and other effects. So these are all static drugs. Whereas rifampicin is basically an anti-tubercular drug which is given once monthly under medical supervision, and this drug is regularly given for 6 months, but the drug is prescribed only once in a month. That means only 6 capsules or tablet of rifampicin is required to complete a treatment of paucibacillary leprosy. Why is rifampicin given only once, when it is given regularly in case of tuberculosis? Because it's a slow growing bacilli, and one rifampicin tablet will kill almost 99% of the bacteria. So the chance of resistance will be lesser, the chance of adverse drug reactions will be lesser, and the effectiveness we are getting from rifampicin is adequate enough. Hence, rifampicin is given in this kind of slow growing bacilli once daily. And this is the reason, this is one occasion where one bactericidal drug is actually combined with the static preparations. So this is the treatment of multibacillary leprosy, where rifampicin, dapsone and clofazimine, these 3 are given for 12 months, but the WHO criteria is you have to use it for 24 months. Rifampicin is given 600 milligram once monthly, whereas dapsone is given 100 milligram daily, and clofazimine is given 300 milligram first dose, followed by 50 milligram regularly throughout the month. Again, on the next month, you have to give clofazimine 300 milligram on the first day, and then is followed by 50 milligram on the following days. So 3 drug therapy is based for multibacillary leprosy, and the color is there, so it is easier for some healthcare worker to disperse this kind of medications properly to the patients. Whereas the paucibacillary leprosy, it is only rifampicin and dapsone. Rifampicin is 600 mg once monthly under medical supervision, and Dapsone should be given 100 mg daily. And the completion of therapy usually takes place within 6 months. Now, this Dapsone is basically a sulfone derivative. It is a diamino diphenyl sulfone, and it is interesting to note that it was first synthesized in 1908, but its antibacterial property remained unknown until 1937, and its value as an antileprotic drug was discovered only in 1941. Sulfones are chemically related to sulfonamides, and though they are highly effective in experimental streptococcal infection, they are too toxic for use for this purpose in man. They are, however, very useful in the treatment of leprosy because the doses needed are very small. Among the various sulfones, Dapsone still remains the drug of choice. Mechanism of action of sulfones are usually bacteriostatic, and it acts by inhibiting de novo synthesis of folic acid by Mycobacterium leprae. The action of Dapsone is antagonized by para-aminobenzoic acid, similar to sulfonamide. Sulfones, they have a bacteriostatic action also against other bacteria susceptible to sulfonamides and against the tubercle bacilli. They are, however, not used in the treatment of other infections because of their toxicity. They are absorbed completely from the GI tract. The peak plasma level reached within 1 to 3 hours after oral administration, and it remains detectable in plasma for 8 to 12 hours. They are basically cumulative drug and hence distributed throughout the body fluid, and tissues can be detected in the tissues up to 3 weeks after stopping the therapy. Sulfones get concentrated more in the leprosy affected skin than in the normal skin. These compounds are metabolized in the liver and excreted in urine as glucuronic acid conjugates. The chance of Dapsone resistance is always there. Both primary and secondary resistance to Mycobacterium leprae are well documented, but that can be minimized when it is prescribed with Rifampicin, because the number of bacilli are reduced even with a single dose of Rifampicin. There are different types of adverse drug reactions can be manifested with this drug, and common ones are anorexia, nausea and vomiting. They may give rise to allergic reactions like dermatitis and drug fever as they are containing sulfur in the structure. Skin sensitization is pretty common. Exfoliative dermatitis, Stevens-Johnson syndrome are quite common with this drug, and this may lead to hemolytic anemia in the patients having G6PD deficiency, that means glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase deficiency. The same is also happening with an antimalarial drug, Primaquine. But it is well tolerated in the patients suffering from leprosy. So it's a 100 mg tablet which is given daily, and such dosage results in peak plasma level exceed the MIC of Dapsone against M. leprae by a factor of about 500. Such high levels inhibit the multiplication of mutants of Mycobacterium leprae with low or moderate degrees of Dapsone resistance. Besides this, Dapsone also can be used in dermatitis herpetiformis, in acne vulgaris, in bullous pemphigoid, and sometimes in pneumocystis jirovecii infection, obviously in combination with pyrimethamine. Rifampicin, which will be discussed with antitubercular drug, is basically an antitubercular drug given once monthly dose for 6 months or for 1 year, depending on the nature of leprosy being diagnosed in a clinical scenario. So this will reduce the number of leprosy bacilli. This one is the sidal action, having sidal action, and it's a supervised administration of 600 mg of Rifampicin once a month is good enough to tackle the situation. Bacterial resistance may occur with Rifampicin, whereas clofazimine, it's a red purple phenazine dye, well absorbed after oral administration. It is principally retained in tissues of the reticuloendothelial system and concentrated by macrophages in the skin. It acts by inhibition of mycobacterial DNA synthesis. It is probably bactericidal and has action against dapsone resistant organism. So if somebody is taking clofazimine, it has all kinds of additional effect like anti-inflammatory effect, and that is going to be extremely helpful in lepra reaction. Bacterial resistance to clofazimine is rare, but the adverse drug reaction is very common, and you see reddish black coloration of skin which persists for several months, which is better manifested in white colored person, and in a dose of 100 milligram 3 times a day is useful in lepra reactions because of its simultaneous bactericidal and anti-inflammatory action. It can effectively relieve the agonizing pain in lepra reaction in tuberculous leprosy. It is also claimed that the drug enhances the ability of human macrophages to kill Listeria. And ROM therapy, which I mentioned, is basically a new drug regimen, but due to the chance of missing lesions and by mistaking considering the paucibacillary leprosy as a single patch lesion, we are usually not using these drugs as the first line one. But we have minocycline, clarithromycin, ethanamide, clofazimine, p-floxacin, o-floxacin in our hand. And previously, few of the oils were having used in this kind of problem, that is called Chaul Mugra oil, and that is now of historical interest. So this is the dose of rifampicin, dapsone and clofazimine, which has been shown in a child as per their body weight, and in the lower part it is given in the children where the age is less than 10 years. So this is the way we used to treat a patient with leprosy in different age groups. Leprosy, which was once considered to be an incurable disease, now be cured completely. As in the case of tuberculosis, the main difficulty in the treatment of leprosy is in persuading the patient to continue the drug therapy regularly for a prolonged period. For best results, it is better to detect and treat cases in early stages. So, the medical treatment of leprosy can be wholly undertaken by practitioners or by trained medical people in the majority of patients. Some knowledge about the natural history of the disease, details about drug therapy, compassionate outlook, so that is the ethical part which are extremely essential in this kind of treatment. This disease is transmitted by prolonged and intimate contact with untreated open lepromatous leprosy, whose cutaneous lesions, mucosal discharge may lead to, they will discharge this leprobacilli and responsible for causing this. A single dose of 600 milligram rifampicin kills 95% of leprobacilli within 4 days. Hence, there is no public health problem after 4 days of therapy. Majority of the patients can be treated as outdoor patients in mobile clinics or in primary health centers. Only a few need hospitalization. Segregation must not be advocated very loosely. And usually the patients developing reactions due to these drugs and those with impending eye or nerve damage need hospitalization. Isolation is indicated in patients with lepromatous leprosy who are untreated or in whom treatment has lapsed. Approximately 99.9% of the leprobacilli are killed in about 3 to 4 months by dapsone or clofazimine given daily, and within 3 to 7 days by rifampicin given in a single dose of 600 milligram. Some bacilli may still persist for a long time. This is probably because though drug sensitive, the bacilli are not metabolically active. These are called persisters and they can cause relapse over 3 to 30 years. So far, no drug given alone can eliminate all persisting Mycobacterium lepti, and hence, as in tuberculosis, combination of drug is recommended in order to, number one, prevent drug resistance to monotherapy, number two, eliminate persisting organism, number three, reduce the required duration of effective therapy. And you must add that single dose of rifampicin will kill 95% of uh, the lepra bacilli. And you also mentioned that it's a slowly growing bacilli. Rifampicin, dapsone and clofazimine are the first line drugs in leprosy, and all patients should receive a multi-drug regimen as recommended by WHO. So here you will see two types of reactions are being manifested when the patients are getting uh, treatment regularly. For the proper treatment is given with 3 drugs or 2 drugs. In one reaction, that is called type 1 reaction, that is also known as reversal reaction. An existing lesion suddenly become red, swollen, warm and tender. New lesions may appear, and lesions when subsiding may show scales on the surface. The nerves are close to the skin, may become enlarged, tender and painful. It's causing neuritis with loss of nerve function. Other organs, they are rarely affected. General symptoms, those are not very common. So this is known as type 1 lepra reaction. Now in type 1 reaction, patient may be treated with glucocorticoids, and in this kind of reactions it occurs in patients with good cell mediated immunity. The lesions show increased erythema and swelling, loss of nerve functions are also there, and it leads to a decrease in the number of bacilli in the lesions. So the treatment is mainly directed at controlling acute inflammation and reversing the eye and nerve damage. So glucocorticoid treatment with treatment of anti-leprotic drug is sufficient usually to tackle the situation. Whereas the type 2 reaction is also known as erythema nodosum leprosum. Now it occurs only about 20% of lepromatous leprosy, characterized by this ENL or erythema nodosum leprosum. Is basically a more severe reaction than the first one. The first one is basically milder one. The basic lesion in this one, in the second one, that means type 2 reaction, is a vasculitis following deposition of antigen and antibody immune complex. And suddenly many crops of bright erythematous nodules and raised patches appear and existing lesions become worse. It may be associated with fever, iritis, neuritis, arthritis, lymphadenitis. And it is difficult to treat, and lesions may actually spread. Now, in this case, as these are happening from lepromatous leprosy, we are using some drug like thalidomide, a selective TNF alpha inhibitor, in the dose of 400 milligram daily, and you can use glucocorticoid in the same dose, and you also can add clofazimine to reduce this lepra reaction, which is having anti-inflammatory effect. In leprosy prophylaxis, it is advisable to avoid skin-to-skin contact with the patients with lepromatous leprosy with open lesions. Pass from ulcers is highly infectious. Airborne droplet infection is a distinct possibility, and mechanical transmission by biting insects cannot be ruled out. Antitubercular BCG vaccine has been shown to give some protection against leprosy. Similarly, prophylactic dapsone at half the therapeutic dose is sometimes recommended in close contacts, particularly in children of leprotic mothers. So, This is in brief about the clinical and pharmacological discussion on leprosy. Hope you have enjoyed it thoroughly, and thank you so much for your patient hearing.